What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Palantir stock, ticker symbol PLTR, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Tuesday, April 16th. Alright guys, Palantir stock here today down 77 cents per share in regular trading hours. That's minus 3.4%. Listen, it's faded a few cents here in the after hours. Wherever it's at by the time you get to this video, take it with a grain of salt. The after hours is such low volume, it's easy to move these things. You would be shocked. So take it with a grain of salt, please. Let's pull out all the bias the market was willing to give us today here on Palantir. Start peeling back layers of the onion and really try to understand this movement today, starting with a quick volume profile analysis here on the 5-minute chart. Listen guys, Palantir is a daily upload. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel. Helps out tremendously, and I'll keep the Palantir videos coming every day. So if we take a look here, guys, the moves that I primarily want to look at, this pop and drop that we got off the open, I want to look at the volume on that, and then I also want to take a look at this drop, and we'll see if there's anything else along the way. So if we open this up, we can see we got a very contextual open, quick fade in volume. These 3 consecutive bars here, we popped back upside and held higher volume as the stock pulled down. Those 3 big red bars, that's a very obvious bearish bias. Okay, we have to look at this as unbiased as possible, and we have to give those 3 bars to the bears. There's a clear bearish bias there. Now, as we move in here to kind of like late lunch hour, at least in New York, we see this elevated volume. And then on this doji, you see here, let's actually get rid of that so you can see it a little better. This one here with the small movement but the larger wick, that's the highest volume bar. Okay, this bar here I actually expect was a bit of a battle bar, meaning we saw a lot of buying and a lot of selling occurring on the same bar, which leads to that wick and essentially the doji, okay, which eventually kind of signaled the bottom of that leg down. All right, that to me explains the higher volume. However, we did see increasing volume on the red bars, the consecutive red bars. Granted, it gets broken up by a couple of equal volume green bars on the backside, but I think we have to give at least a sliver of bias to the bears on this, given that we started to see ascending volume kind of out of context as that move began. But to be fair, the bulls did clean it up on the backside with a little bit of higher volume, like right, equal volume on those green bars, broken up by some lower volume red bars. So let's move on here. Let's take a look at the 30-minute and look at the psychological self-fulfilling prophecy levels here on the 30-minute. Guys, Palantir cracked downside. We tried to hold both the 50, right, the white line, and the 200 period moving averages here on the 30-minute. Those both have a lot of eyeballs. We popped up above 23, which is also a level we'll talk about here in a little while, and faded back hard. Okay, we had about 1 retest and just faded and continued downside through the rest of the day. And after the dust settled, we currently kind of find ourselves, at least in the after hours, again, take after hours with a grain of salt, but we find ourselves about 3.25% away from a retest of that 50 period and about 4.2% away from a retest of that 200 period. Now, keep in mind, this 50 period is likely to move downside into tomorrow. Okay, just continuing on from the trend it's already on. So that's likely to be a little bit of a smaller necessary move to try to test that 50 period, but bulls, a reclaim of the 50, if not both, both would be like a great scenario on the 30-minute, but a reclaim of at least the 50 is kind of my goal on the 30-minute here, day to day now. All right, whereas bears, your goal is to just hold those off, right? As the 50 comes down, if you were to see a retest, I don't care what volume it retests it on, right, the 50, as long as you see a hard, high volume rejection, treating the 50 period as a true area of rejection, at least in the short term. The 30-minute can change on a dime, but you want to take what you have and run with it for as long as possible for your particular side. Now let's move on here to the 4-hour chart. You can see kind of a similar situation. We rejected off the 50 period and faded, struggling to reclaim that here the last few days. And today, really no different here. So the 50 period is currently at 2268 on the 4-hour. And the stock right now is sitting at 2180. So listen, bears, you guys want that 50 period coming downside, ideally below 2250, which is another psychological number, as soon as possible. But understand, bears, The 50 on the 4-hour takes its time. It's a slower moving average, certainly a lot slower than on the 30-minute. Okay, so bulls, that could be seen as an advantage, because since that's likely to take its time, adding another psychological barrier, moving lower and lower and lower, the bulls probably have a little bit of time here on the 4-hour to try to bounce back upside and reclaim that 50 before that thing comes lower and lower. All right, bears, obviously you want that thing getting as low as possible, as quickly as possible, but understand it's a little slower. All right, so be reasonable with the expected time frame given the chart. Now, let's move on to the real story here, which is the daily. Okay, Palantir just recently was very, very in play on the daily with this 50 period or 50-day moving average crossing up above 23, and we were kind of struggling around this region here. We've now, seen that 50-day move upside and become kind of its own level rather than just supporting 23. Now these are two separate levels, and we're struggling. Palantir is really struggling right now to reclaim 23 bucks a share. We've tested essentially 3 trading days in a row and kind of failed each time. You could argue back on Thursday it wasn't quite a test, but we got close. But this is really simple, guys, here on the daily. Bulls, any downside test of 2130, which is that next area, I want to see that hold. But really on the daily, and we know what Palantir is capable of in terms of volatility, so we have to talk about like some bigger moves. Hold 2130, but reclaim 23 as soon as possible. And I don't mean like in the last 5-minute candle of the day. I mean ideally get above 23 and spend some real time intraday during the regular session above 23 and close above that level. All right? That's really the goal on the daily chart, at least in the near term on Palantir. And then that would set us up for an upside test to kind of use 23 to make an upside test of that 50-day moving average. Bears, 23 is your enemy to the upside. 2130, a crack downside of that, is your goal. Ideally doing so on big volume. Okay? Now, implied volatility, guys, it's still moving upside. It's at almost its highest point compared to the last couple of months here on Palantir. So, if you're seeing some Vega pump in your contracts, this here is the culprit. IV's been on a tear as of late, but I'll understand, for those of you looking to purchase options, when you buy options when IV's higher, you are inherently running a slightly higher risk of potentially seeing some IV crush in the future if IV begins to fall after you buy. Okay? Now, let's take a look at what's the expected move on Palantir. Well, the next expiration we have here is April 19th. That's Friday's close. And if we look, we don't have any earnings coming up until May 6th here on Palantir. Okay, so there's no earnings to worry about between now and then. Friday's close, the expected move by then compared to today's close is $1 plus or minus $1.08 per share. Divide that by 4 trading days, that gives us 27 cents plus or minus tomorrow by tomorrow's close, but we have to add 50% to that. Otherwise, you're dealing with the expectation of 4 green days in a row or 4 red days in a row, so we have to make up for that. I like to add about 50% in this market. I change it based on the market. Right now, 50% seems to be where I like to be. And that gives us plus or minus 41 cents per share. Okay, so that's the volatility expectation by close here tomorrow, Tuesday, is just plus or minus 40 cents. Today we saw 77 cents. All right, but there's one more thing we can do for directional bias, and that's my favorite part of the video here. The options bias. This is all just from today. We had about 295,000 total contracts traded here today. 214,000 of those were calls. 81,000 were puts. Heavy call side bias on Palantir here today. But even better, guys, the 0 to 20 delta range. Those are the short-term speculators. Right? We're seeing 57,000 calls in that range and 20,000 puts. Nearly triple the call side bias out of the short-term speculators compared to the puts. Listen, guys, I hope to see you come join our private trading community. There's a ton going on in there every single day. I'm sending out my personal scalp setup alerts. I'm sending out in-play stock alerts. I'm sending out human-verified unusual options activity. I've been doing that for years. That's how I keep track of what the whales are up to. Swing trade setup alerts as they come around, okay? And of course, working with my Platinum one-on-one members every single day. That link in the pinned comment, that'll allow you to get grandfathered in at the current rate. That makes you immune to future price raises. And you'll just stay at whatever price you join at. And hey, If you're getting value out of these Palantir videos, guys, again, Palantir is a daily upload, so please subscribe to the channel. And let me know if you have questions in the comment section. There are no dumb questions on this channel. As simple or as complex as you'd like it to be, let me know in the comment section. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.